Yeah, and also market research. So for example, if you're a product marketing manager, then it's your job to conduct your market analysis to figure out what competitors are doing in the field, figure out why your product has a competitive advantage and things like that. And this really plays into teamwork, right? Because in the real world, you'll never have business people just with business people or engineers just with engineers. You're always going to be in these cross-functional teams. And we were thinking that if we can give you guys the ability to do this in school, then once you get into the real world, it'll be smooth sailing for you guys, right? Because you already have relevant experience on your resume that includes the technical skills we just mentioned, as well as like a lot of the soft skills that come with being a business person. So, MAISS is really about combining business and tech, and that's why we want to bring this program to you guys. Also, feel free if you have questions, like throw them in the chat. But this is the timeline we had in mind. So currently it's week 1, and you guys are here, you're learning about the program. That's great. Applications are due at the moment Friday at midnight, but we might extend depending on just how things are going because it's week 1. I know myself, I've taken a while to get adjusted into everything, so we might push that back. But the week after, we'll be having quick interviews. These will be led by me, and this is kind of just to gauge out your experience as well as commitment to this program because unlike some other things, like for example, the MAISS internship program, it's pretty structured in terms of what you have to do. And this has structure as well, but if the team isn't motivated to create an idea, to create a product, then it's really not going to go anywhere. So that's kind of what the interview is for, to really vet you and just make sure you're as passionate as we all are about business and technology. And then week 3, you guys will be starting the actual program. So me as EVP will be meeting with you guys for weekly stand-ups where in the first week you're just going to really solidify your idea, like what product, what application, what website you guys want to build and what do you want it to solve. And then in the 2 weeks after that, your UX designer and your PMM will be doing the bulk of the work here because you're going to want to validate that idea, right? You want to make sure you can actually make a convincing user flow and a convincing wireframe, which we can talk about later, that users will actually want to use, as well as your product marketing manager will want to look at the industry landscape, make sure no one else is doing this, make sure if other people are doing this, then why is their app better? On week 6 to 8, this is where the software engineers will really ramp up because you want to actually build the product. And throughout this entire process, the product manager will be coordinating everyone. That's the business people and the technology people, making sure everyone's efforts are being applied most effectively. And even during this phase, the designers will continue to iterate on the previous designs, make sure the engineers are incorporating their designs, and the PMM will start to solicit user feedback. So think running marketing campaigns to gauge actual user interest in this application, maybe soliciting people for beta testing. And on week 9, finally, you're going to combine everything you've been working on. You're going to make sure your code, everything is really good and follows industry standards. You're going to create a pitch deck and you're going to pitch to MAISS board and any members choose to attend on demo day. Once you're there, we'll evaluate what you built this quarter. This goes for following good coding conventions. So you can imagine if you're a software engineer, then me, Derek, and Alex Pham will be looking at your code, making sure you follow good conventions. Some of our more marketing-minded people will be looking at the PMM's work. All of us will be looking at the product manager work. And yeah, it'll be really fun. Again, you'll be able to put all this on your resume, and hopefully when you go into the real world, you'll realize that the real world is very similar to this in internships and in full-time roles. But yeah, Alex, take it away.
Yeah. So with that said, we're just going to introduce some of the roles that we want to implement into this program. So starting off with the product manager, the PM role really sits in between the intersection of business and technology, as that's the person that's really defining the roadmap and where the team should be going. And so the product manager will be working with the engineers, the designers, as well as the PMM to really scope out the project and see where do they want to go and how do they want to define success, right? And so basically your like responsibilities as a product manager are building that future roadmap. So working with the team to create a product and an end goal that ultimately can be successful and attained. And then you guys the product manager will also be ensuring that the designs are worked into that code. So working with the engineers to do daily or weekly sprints so that the workload is manageable instead of overloading engineers work all at one time, and making sure that engineers are hitting marks on the design of the code so that the project can be developed smoothly. And then overall, it's just a managing of the team and making sure that the team is focused on the end goal, and so that everyone in the project can reach success. And so some of the preferences that the PM role will probably have is having good management skills and having good people skills. So you'll really be sitting at the intersection of technology and business, and having that people skills to really manage others, as well as understand the technical side of what the engineers are doing and what the features they're building is really critical for this position. Brian, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think it's mine. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So moving on to software engineering. Currently we're open to having like 2 to 3 software engineers instead of just having one, because I know that having one software engineer would make everything difficult for that one person, since this project is really big. So that's why we have it at that cap for now. But in terms of responsibilities of software engineer, they basically take the blueprint of what the PM lays out, and they put it into practice. So they're the ones who write the code and test whatever they've written. And they also manage cloud services. And I think that's especially important, because we want you guys to make a product that's very impactful, and maybe it's something that could be possibly used for the public. Yeah, in terms of qualifications, we want individuals who have coding experience or software development experience, because some of the topics that will be applied to these projects will be kind of advanced. So yeah, and some of the skills we're looking for in candidates are knowledge in Git, some cloud services such as Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, knowledge in like web or app development, and having the ability to read documentation effectively.
Yeah, so next is the product designer. So for people who are really design oriented and really want to work on what the user is looking at and interacts with, this is the position for you. So the product designer's main responsibilities are figuring out users and how users will interact with the product, creating user flows and wireframes on Figma. So basically using Figma, which is a UI UX design tool, to basically create the product virtually, and then seeing how the user will interact with the main interface, and then seeing if that's a good fit for the user and that specific product. And so some of the preferences for this position will obviously be graphic design experience, because it is a very design heavy oriented position, as well as having experience with Figma and or Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator.
And yeah, last one is the product marketing manager. So if you kind of think that the PM is like the manager of everyone, the product marketing manager tends to be similar in the sense that you're going to make a lot of business research, which will help the product manager make their business decisions, to kind of report directly to him or her. And I would say that this position is more like technically like business focused. So think doing market analysis, like we've already said a lot of times, competitive analysis, SWOT analysis, all these different things that will help the product manager decide what features should the engineers produce, what designs from the product designer should be implemented, what markets should the application launch in, what language should you be supporting, just everything like that. So it's a really cool position. You're going to be affecting a lot of things about the long-term and the short-term direction of this application, even if you're not involved in like the day-to-day coding or like designing of the application. Super useful position. And especially near the end of the project, like I mentioned with that pitch deck, you're going to be supplying a lot of the hard like numbers, like different KPIs that you hit throughout the quarter, different statistics, things like that, to really show MAISS board like what you've been doing throughout the quarter. So to talk a little bit about the application now, again, feel free to throw questions in the chat about any of the roles we just talked about, but to, I guess, talk about like numbers. So we imagine only having one team this quarter, even though it's called Project Teams. We really want to try out this as our kind of like beta test quarter, see how things go, hopefully continue this next spring. And in terms of the actual positions, as Derek said, we foresee seeing 2 to 3 engineers, probably only one product manager. as well as one designer and PMM. But when you're working in a startup, you wear different hats all the time. If you apply for a product manager position and we have two really good candidates, then we're not gonna stop you. But just know that you might have to do more of the PMM work or more of the other positions work, because that's kind of how it is in the real world. I mean, when I was at a startup, I got put on a lot of project management work as well as product marketing work in addition to my software engineering work. So it just kind of works like that. So I guess I don't have the link for the application on me right now, but I'll get it and put it in the chat later. I know some of you have already applied, but there are different roles like we mentioned, and we'd recommend you applying only to 2 maximum. It's fine if you're super interested in all of them and you can like put that somewhere else, but on the application, for example, you need to talk about why you're interested in those roles. For your sake and for our sake, you can only write about 2, which is we prefer. But again, you wear a lot of hats in the startup. You can definitely switch over once you, or if you were to get into the project team. And I talked about this when I talk about interviews, the 15-minute interviews I'll be doing. We really want everyone to be putting in an equal amount of effort. If you think about this in terms of like an employer looking at your resume, if you were the one on the project team who wasn't contributing too much, you won't be able to write as much. If they ask you what you did on the project team, if you can't really talk about what you did, then it's really not worth their time to read that part of your resume, as well as not worth your time to apply to this program. So just really make sure this is something you want to do for the quarter, and be honest about your level of experience in the application. Like, we'll be interviewing you, but everyone starts from somewhere. It's fine if you have little to no experience, but as long as you have the desire to learn more about business and technology, as well as work with another group of individuals, that's really all that we ask for. And that's pretty much all we had. I mean, we have a feedback form if you want to fill that out and let us know how we did. But again, feel free to ask questions. I see Crystal's put the application in the chat. Thanks. But yeah, that's pretty much all we have. You can also feel free to leave if you have
Yeah.
to. But the application, yeah, currently is due Friday at 11:59. So get those applications in. And also, I mean, if like, for example, if you have a friend that you really want to work with, I know the biggest thing for me when choosing partners in my computer science classes was all word of mouth. So feel free to recommend it to them as well. But yeah, thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed this.
All right, cool. Thanks for the information.